Hey, everybody. Welcome to Thursday, the Thursday Spark Live. Glad to have you here with us. Uh, Definitely an interesting day today. Taylor's not with me, so I'm on my own. When the cat's away, the mice will play. We've got all sorts of curious things to do. This is actually our monthly Q&A. So any of the questions that you have burning a hole in your pocket, in your brain, and you want to get answers, I'd be happy to take a stab at it. If I don't have the answer, we can do some research, and I have a whole team full of experts behind me that are standing by, ready to pitch in and respond with their expertise as well. So, looking forward to today and talking about it. Now, um, I picked some of the questions that I wanted to get to today. They're the ones that piqued my whimsy. So it may not be the one that you were hoping we would answer. That's okay. We're doing this every single month, so just tune in again, and we'll be sure to answer all of the questions that come to us as we get them and as we can. So. Without anything else to say, I'm going to jump into it real quickly. If you don't mind, please give us a like or a little heart, and that just helps the juju and everything with the powers that be, so that we get a little more love and attention and get to share this with more people who might be watching. If you're on YouTube and watching this, then please like and subscribe as well. As they say, mash the subscribe button. I don't know why they say that, but that's what they say. So do that. So, all right, let's jump into some questions then. The first question that I wanted to answer today is this one: do I really need a website anymore? Really, the full question was along the lines of, I've looked at my statistics. I track where every single phone call online comes from. When they call, I ask them, how did you hear about us? And I can tell that all of my traffic, all of my new leads, all of my new customers are coming from two places, and that's Google Business Profile, used to be called Google My Business, and Facebook. So why do I need a website if all of my leads are coming from these other two public places, and I've done my best to optimize my Google Business Profile and to update and optimize my Facebook page? Then is a website, and the cost of a website and the hassle of all of that, is it really worth it anymore? Haven't we grown past that? Is kind of the sentiment of that question. So I think it's a great question. I think it's one that we need to answer. We need to make sure that we're crystal clear about what the differences are between those online properties like Google Business Profile, Facebook pages, and your own website. So the first glaring difference between those is you only own one of them. Guess which one it is that you own? It's your website. You don't own your Google business page. You can claim it so that it's associated with your business and verified that way. You can set up a Facebook page and run it and feel like you own it. But the moment that Google or Facebook says, for whatever reason, we're disallowing your page, or we're not doing pages anymore, or we've changed the program and now it happens this way, which means that your pages aren't going to show as much as other people's pages and that kind of thing. It's just putting your eggs in somebody else's basket. And that's a dangerous place to be when it comes to running your business, to count on the good graces of other large corporate interests to say, yeah, we're going to let you keep your page and continue getting business until we don't. And then you won't be able to continue getting business from this anymore. So I've actually heard stories, actually talked to someone who had decided early in his business, when he just started out, that he couldn't afford a website. So he just went with his Facebook page. He spent a lot of time promoting it and was getting a lot of traction using his Facebook page. he made one comment on Facebook that landed him in Facebook jail, and suddenly his Facebook page was affected as well and taken down. I heard it talk to someone else who uh, only used Facebook and Google, and somebody broke into his account, hacked his account, and stole his page, and he couldn't get it back. And they changed all the information on the page, and he had no way of getting that information corrected. He had no way of reclaiming that page. And I mean, it was a long multi-month process of trying to unwind that. So this kind of stuff happens, and we need to be careful. We need to use those tools when we can. Google and Facebook are absolutely great sources for leads, but to say that we don't need a website anymore, I think is a little bit foolhardy. So at the very least, right? I mean, we're talking about property ownership. We're talking about ways of making your business more valuable, not only to you as you run it, but potentially one day if you ever decide to sell it, right? So the property that is a part of your business on the day you put it up for sale, all of that gets evaluated as part of the value of the business. So having a functioning, well-performing, well-converting website as part of what you are selling with your business just jacks the price way up. So we've seen that time and time again. Sites that have poor sites, businesses that have poor websites, poor performing, poor converting, old websites, not optimized, not paid attention to, years old, and just kind of an afterthought that are just hanging out there. Those aren't worth anything. And a new business owner knows that if they buy this business, they're going to have to come in and spend a considerable amount of money and time revamping the website and getting it up to speed, getting it to where it starts performing and bringing in revenue again. So having a website, absolutely still important, still expensive, more expensive than it's ever been, in fact, because there's just so much complexity now because of the way that a well-performing website has to be built in order to satisfy the Google gods and all the other interests. But absolutely a necessity. So thank you for that question. That was a good one. I'm going to jump to the comments real quick. Renee says these things like Facebook and Google and your website all work in tandem. That's a good point, Renee. I want to focus on that for a second. One of the best ways to use Google Business Profile and your Facebook page is to not only put your phone number in a way for people to contact you, just right there, because a lot of them they'll just call straight from the listing there on one of those places and never come to your website. But it's a good idea to always make sure that your website is present there, and that you're advertising the fact that you have a website, that people can go there and learn more. And by driving traffic to your website from those other sources, you're making sure that your website is still the hub, the center of your universe, and the most valuable property with regard to your presence online that's out there. So that's a great point, Renee. Chuck says you need a website to drive all of your clients to showing your value and your offerings. Yeah, you can do a lot these days with Google Business Profile, as far as adding images and videos. All of your Google reviews are there for people to see. So, it's almost like a full-fledged mini website, and can have a lot of good information there for people to see. But you can still show more and control the way that you show it when you build an appropriate website for your company. So, before and after pictures, galleries of pictures that you've done, bios on your key employees, and at least headshots of everybody on your team, so that people can see who you are, and smiling faces and all of those things that make you real, and not just a listing online. So your website is still a great place to be able to be real to your customers and give them all of the information that they're interested in. In-depth articles about the services that you provide, the problems that you solve, the issues that you commonly see that are going to resonate with people who have those issues. So a website is good for that. Yes, I totally agree with you, Chuck. Your second point here. Websites are not an expense. I mean, they're expensive, but it's an investment. And it should absolutely be evaluated as an investment, because the goal of any website is not simply to spend money as a consumable, as a thing to have. It's a thing that you're measuring to see, what is my return on my investment. It should be giving you something back. If it's not giving you something back, then it's time to build a website that does. So evaluating your website as an investment, I think, is the appropriate way to evaluate that sort of activity and that sort of marketing. So good point. Thank you both. All right, we're going to move on to the next question then. And this is one that it comes up still every once in a while. And so the idea that tracking numbers that I use in various places, both online and offline, and around in my different marketing materials, different numbers for different types of marketing, so that I can track better where people are coming from. And the question is, isn't that bad for SEO? Doesn't that hurt my search engine optimization? And good question. There was a time when it did. There was an absolute thing called NAP confusion. NAP is name, address, and phone number. That's your information that should never change online. It should always be the same everywhere that it appears, in every listing, every directory, all of your search results, everything. Your name, address, phone number for your business should be the same. And when the phone number changes, or the address changes, or something about your website is different, I'm sorry, your listing is different, it was creating confusion. Google suddenly thought, well, is this a different business? And so you would see a lot of these duplicate listings, because there were multiple phone numbers out there, and Google couldn't tell the difference between this phone number and that phone number, thought it was a different business, and so created a new listing. It was a mess back in the day, and a lot of it was caused by people using tracking numbers online, especially on their website. And I guess it's still a possibility that if it's done incorrectly, that those tracking numbers could appear or could confuse Google's algorithms and Google's systems, and cause some confusion. The reason you don't want to cause confusion is you're splitting your effectiveness, right? So instead of just always showing up in one place as you, now you're showing up in multiple places, and nobody's sure exactly which business is which. So you're splitting your odds instead of increasing them. So because there's a lot more guidance from Google now, and has been for several years, about tracking numbers and how to use them, and the services that offer them for online tracking are doing it in a way that Google approves of. Tracking numbers have become very effective in helping you understand where your most value is coming from in your marketing efforts. So we absolutely recommend them now, and we use them. There was a time when we didn't. In fact, we discouraged people from using it. We told people not to do it, and we would not do it for them. Those days have since passed. And so I think some of that confusion has come from some of the things that we've said in the past, and new information now and new practices mean that recommendation of not using them is no longer valid. We now recommend that you use tracking numbers because it's important to know where's my, I'm spending all this money on Google ads, but is it bringing me anything? Well, by using a tracking number, you can more closely match up the number of leads and calls you get with the actual source that it came from. And that's gold. That's valuable information to have, because now if I spend more money with Google ads, chances are I'll get more leads from that. And I need to stop spending money in this other thing because I don't get anything from that tracking number. So it becomes a quick way of knowing kind of exactly what you're doing. I'm going to jump over to Tom here. This is back to the website question, but it's valid. If I'm looking at a business on Google Business Profile without a website, I get a little skeptical, especially if I feel I need to do more research than what Google or Facebook provides. That's a fair point. I mean, a website adds legitimacy, credibility, proof that you're in business and that you're established. A good website is a reflection of your brand. All of those things are important and are either consciously or subconsciously, implicitly or explicitly, ways that people or things that people use to make a decision about who they're going to work with. So good stuff, Tom. Thank you. So I hope that answers about tracking numbers. If you've got any questions, please feel free to throw it in the comments and I'll answer those. And if you're just joining us, appreciate those thumbs up and those likes and hearts. All right, next question. I loved how this person worded it. Is Yelp the devil's spawn? Am I selling my soul if I work with them? I kind of laughed. No, they're not the devil's spawn, but I can absolutely understand how you might feel that way. I'm not a big fan. Mainly because they, I think, unfairly bury good reviews in favor of negative reviews, and we've all seen it. They're aggressive sales tactics. They call all the time trying to get you to pay them money. And then when you do pay them money and things don't go well and you stop paying them money, then all of a sudden all of your reviews disappear and there's nothing you can do about it. These kinds of practices, to me, put Yelp in a category very unique and very close to the gates of hell. But I don't know that it's exactly the devil's spawn. So if you work with them, are you selling your soul? Well, I think the real question there is, Renee says, yes, they are. I think the real question about working with them comes down to one thing, and that is, what part of the country are you in, and how many of your customers are using Yelp in order to find the businesses they want to work for or work with. So in certain parts of the country, here in the South, in Tennessee, Yelp doesn't have much of a presence. I mean, it's there and people use it, but it's not nearly as active as Google reviews and other types of review places that people use to get their information and to share reviews. So Yelp is just not as popular. However, on the West Coast, we have clients in San Diego and in the Bay Area, and there's no way they can get around using Yelp. It's the place that everybody there uses. And so our advice really is different depending on where you are, as far as whether or not you can ignore them. And I'll say this, you can't ignore them completely, right? Everybody needs to have a Yelp listing, and you need to claim it, you need to fill it out, it needs to be there, and you need to manage it, right? So you need to know what the reviews are saying. But do you need to spend extra money to get into one of their tiered packages to attract more customers? Well, the answer to that really depends on where you are in the country and where your customers find out about you. So the answer for most people these days, I think, is probably not, but there are still pockets throughout the country where Yelp has a very big presence and they're very influential with consumers. So we need to take that into account on a case-by-case basis, and we could certainly help you ferret that out and figure out what you might need to do in your particular area if you want to ask. So anyway, that's what I have to say about that. Okay, this is a good question. How do I optimize my images, and is it really necessary? So I'm guessing you mean for your website, maybe for social media profiles and posts. It's a good question. So as phones have progressed, the size of images has increased, right? So the camera on your phone takes a much better image than it ever did, but it also takes a much larger size image in terms of the kilobytes or megabytes now. So you can get an image that is fairly large and very detailed, and you can upload it as a post or share it on Facebook. And the first thing that Facebook is going to do is process that image on their end and then deliver an image that's been optimized for its platform that fits its guidelines. Okay, and they do it all behind the scenes. They do it very quietly. Most people don't even notice because the way that they optimize it is actually fairly decent. You don't lose a whole lot of detail in the image. It still enlarges a little bit for most screens so that you can zoom in and see more detail if you want to. But it is truly optimized and considerably smaller in terms of file size than it was when you uploaded it. So there's really not much need to optimize an image for social media profiles. However, let's talk about your website. Okay, if you are designing and hosting and managing your own website, and you're creating pages and blog posts and adding images to your pages, optimizing images really is necessary. Google likes to see images and wants to know and wants to see unique images, not just a whole bunch of stock photos, but real photos of real work and real people. So when you put lots of images on your site, you might be tempted to think that you're doing exactly what Google wants you to do. However, if those images are way too big and are not optimized, and by optimized, I mean an appropriate size for someone on a particular device to be able to look at that image and see it and understand what it is and why you put it there. Like what detail is it about this image that made it important for you to include it on a page. So one of the biggest hits that websites take is how long does a page take to actually load. And one of the biggest things that affects page load time are the size of the images. So if you have a bunch of big images on a page, like a gallery page or a page that includes a bunch of before and afters, or a slideshow or a carousel that is rotating out images on a slider, then it can take a long time for those to load. And that means that page is not displaying quickly for viewers. They're having to wait for those images to load sometimes, and that can cause a hit. So optimizing your images is necessary. How do I optimize them? So we're finally to the question now. Do a Google search, and you don't have to search. I mean, I'll share my screen real quick. Let me see. I'll share this one here. So, I mean, I just did a quick search here for Image Optimizer free download for Windows 10, and I mean, we're coming up with all sorts of free places that you can grab an image optimizer. So some of them will allow you to specify the dimensions and crop in on the image to just a part of the detail that you want to show and exclude the rest of the image. It will allow you to decide how optimized you want it to be. Like if it's not a very detailed image, you can do a very low resolution version and it looks just fine. Or if you need more detail, then you can bump it up by degree, by steps to get a little bit higher resolution. I would say play with some of them. I'm not going to recommend a specific one. We've used a lot of different ones over the years. And I will say that most of them all function relatively well and do a good job. There are slight variations to them, slight advantages to some of them, at least for me, in the way I like to optimize images. But you need to play with it and see. The real goal, though, is to make the highest possible quality image in the largest pixel size, pixel dimensions, at the lowest file size, right? The kilobytes or megabytes that the file actually takes up. So it's there are trade-offs in that kind of optimization, and you just have to experiment with some of them. So I'd say do a search, see what you can find, and if you find one that you really like, or if you have one you really like already, go ahead and put it in the comments. I'd love to know what you're using. All right. Next, I'm checking the comments here. I don't see any questions. So I'm going to move on to the next one. This one's good, and I've got 5 minutes to cover it, but it's the last one for today. So What is conversion optimization? The person who asked this actually said, you guys talk about SEO and search engine optimization, and I feel like after years of hearing you talk about it, I finally understand a little bit about what that is. But you used a term in one of your presentations that I wasn't familiar with about conversion optimization. Is that the same thing? And it was a good question, so I wanted to address that today. It's not the same thing. So search optimization is doing whatever you need to do so that the search engines, especially Google, know how to process your page and know who that page is appropriate for, so that when someone is searching for the information that you are presenting on your page, that your page has a better chance of being shown to that person in the search results at the top. Conversion optimization is a different process. It's all about how to make your site perform better as far as when people come to your website. Are they seeing what they need to see in order to make a decision that you want them to make, right? So anytime somebody comes to your website, they're a visitor. They're not a customer yet. They're going to review your information, and there are going to be specific calls to action throughout your site, hopefully. Asking people to fill out a form to schedule, or to call this number to schedule, or whatever it is that you're asking them to do, that might be considered a conversion. So when they do that thing, they convert from a visitor who's not paying anything to you, not a customer yet, into the potential for being a real customer. Now, there's different stages of conversion, right? There's converting from a prospect or a prospect on your website, a visitor, into somebody who becomes a lead. This is somebody who hasn't done business with you yet, but has raised their hand and said, I'd be interested to learn more about your services and see if I can hire you to do a job, right? And then the conversion finally from a lead into a paying customer, a booked appointment, that's the conversion that really matters, right? So there's different ways to look at conversion optimization, and a lot of it just depends on what it is you're trying to do on any given page, and what your call to action is, which specific action do you want your customer on that page to take next after engaging with that page. So that is the process of conversion optimization. There are plenty of articles about it, plenty of steps that can be taken to improve your conversions on your website. Some of it gets pretty technical. Some of it is very data driven, and marketers love data. I know Tom's on this call, and he's one of my data geeks right there along with me. We love to look at numbers. We love to see what's really going on under the hood, how we can improve a page that might be getting a lot of traffic, but not much conversions, not a lot of phone calls from that page. So how do we tweak that page to really give us the conversions that we're after? And that is really the gold standard, the next level. There's no reason to have a website if it's not converting. And if your goal is just to have a website and you don't care about conversions, then you really ought to ask yourself the question, what are you doing? Why are you in business anyway? So and jump to a question or a comment Chuck made. Use your pics in your video is even better. Also, if you have the right team managing your page, Spark, thanks, Chuck, they provide detailed reporting on what customers are viewing and for how long. This is gold to refine your marketing. The secret is getting the right partner. Well, I didn't realize you were, I should have read the comment. Thanks for the love, Chuck. I appreciate that a lot. It was always a pleasure getting to work with you in that, in your business. And yeah, the data is everything, and we love to share that data with customers that want to see it, because we think that when they know what's going on, they may have insights and ways that we can work together to get even better conversions for you in the long run. So good comment. Real quick, just a note from our team that we've written some about website conversions in our resource center. Our resource center doesn't get enough love. We should really promote that better. And I'm speaking as to myself here, that I should mention it more often in our Spark Lives. It's just a great in-depth treasure trove of articles and posts about a lot of the topics that we talk about here So if you enjoy reading about some of these things, then definitely visit our resource center. You can find links to that on our site, sparkmarketer.com, or you can just go directly to the resource center, which is resources.sparkmarketer.com, and do all sorts of browsing through that as well. So thanks, team, for mentioning that. Okay, well, that wraps it up for today and all of the questions that we have. We're going to do this every month. So if you have questions that you want answered, if you want to feed those to me, then we'll make sure that we have a list running right now of questions that we want to make sure we get to and answer. So we would love to add your question to that list. And again, thanks everybody for being here. Just a reminder that Spark Live can be found on your favorite podcast platform. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, lots of others. Make sure you download that if you don't get a chance to watch it live. And if you like audio podcasts when you're riding around in the truck all day, then make sure you subscribe so that you get every one of these episodes delivered right to you in that platform. Okay, next week Taylor's going to be back. I think he's going to be back. I better check on that. I'm pretty sure he's going to be back. He's traveling right now doing a lot of video with clients. And so that's why he's not with us today. But we're going to be talking about spam and the advanced way that Google is now fighting spam. And I'm guessing that means map spam and a lot of the other kinds of listing spam that we see. And Google is definitely getting better at combating that. We've seen a lot of progress. So we'll be talking about that next week. Check my comments one last time. Thanks, Renee. Appreciate you being here as always. Thanks so much for sharing your encouraging words. All right, everybody. That does it for this week, and we'll see you again next Thursday. Take care.